All right. So you ready?
Oh, we match. Good. You got the
I
green.
know, right? I know, right? We look
Yes, I'm ready.
cute. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Just recently, I have this beautiful person, friend of mine, former colleague, Carol Sparge. I saw that she got into a horrible accident, tumbled, and just broke so many things in her foot. That led me to call her. We started this amazing conversation. Then we went to lunch. Now, here we are again because I wanted to talk to Carol. Hey, Carol.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here.
And I know, right? I wanted to talk to Carol about because we talked so much about news and our experience at WSB. And of course, you spent many, many decades there and retired not too long ago. So the topic for this show is, you worked at WSB, you've retired. Now what? So life after TV news. Talk about it.
Well, I retired 3 years ago. I was
Hmm.
in the news business for 39 years, 29 of them at WSB TV in Atlanta. I worked as an anchor and a reporter, and I really loved my career. I was one of those people that always had a lot of interests and
Hmm.
wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I changed my major a lot in college and went different directions. I got my undergraduate degree in business economics. Then I graduated with it and said, "What am I going to do with this?" And about a year later, I decided I wanted to pursue this profession. I went back to school, went and got a master's in broadcast journalism, and that's how I got into the field. So I left or decided to retire really for several reasons. One, I really enjoyed what I did, but the one thing that we really don't have in that career is flexibility.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
you're in there, you are in there, you are going all day. It's 9, 10 hour days. You, a lot of times in this business, will work weekends, will work nights, will work early mornings. And you have to put your vacation request in the beginning of the year. And I just reached a point where I think I just wanted more flexibility and just be able to explore things I couldn't really explore when I was working that much.
And the other thing is, too, people don't realize, if there's breaking news, if, just recently we had the snowstorm, actually two of them, that's wall to wall coverage. When I looked at all of the correspondents, reporters, anchors who were out in LA doing the fires, people don't
Yes.
don't recall or think like while the first responders are out there, people are out there, we are out there. So you're taking in the smoke, you're taking in all of the emotional baggage that people are going through. You feel for it is more than just, oh, we're on television, it's so
Yes.
glamorous. People don't realize the work that we do behind the scenes. So talk about how your life has been since you now have flexibility. You can get up when you want because you used to wake up at what time to be at Channel 2 by what time?
Well, when I anchored the early morning news during the week, I would get up at 2 in the morning. And, at the time, my son was in middle school and then high school. So, I mean, I wasn't going to bed early. I wasn't getting the sleep that you're supposed to. You just kind of go on your adrenaline.
Adrenaline. Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that I think took a while to. I think you don't realize when you're wrapped up in it. You're just going at a pace and you keep going for the next day and the next day. And I don't think you realize how it kind of affects you as far as your sleep patterns or maybe
Hmm.
the stress. So getting my sleep back to normal really took a while to kind of figure out, what's right for my body. How can I sleep through the night? I mean, that was one of the biggest challenges after I retired. And I was surprised that I would say it almost took me a year before I
Wow.
felt like I was, okay, this is what my body wants.
Hmm.
So that was a big adjustment. The other thing that I did, it was actually my sister-in-law, who is a couple years older than me, so she retired a few years before. She was an elementary school principal up in New York. And her advice to me, because she's a real go-go person, she said, don't jump right into things because that's what you're
Yes.
going to want to do. Okay, now I can do this and I can do that. She said, step back, slow yourself down, take
Hmm.
time to just kind of decompress and
Hmm.
then start to figure out what you want to do. And I think that was just great advice. because you just kind of slow yourself down, and then you begin to think about, oh, I always used to like to do that, or this hobby or this activity, and it kind of comes to you.
It's funny how, something as simple as sleep and having to recalibrate your body. And much like you, Carol, when I finally left television news for good, it took me a minute to realize how much time my life, my work life, bled over into my personal life. So
Mm,
because I was used to going so much
right.
and realized that I didn't have that component there, I didn't realize how much time I had to decide, oh, even something as simple as being able to eat what I want at a slower pace. I remember I used to hang out with friends and they were like, God, you eat so fast.
That's true.
I was like,
That's a good, no, that's a
because,
good point. Yeah,
yeah,
because we're just used to doing at work everything in a fast pace. You want to eat quick because you have to finish your story, you have to
yeah,
log your video, you have to write, you have a lot, and you're
you have
watching
a lot.
the clock all afternoon.
Absolutely. So talk about what you do now.
So some of the things that I do now is I enjoy walking a lot, although I did have to put that on hold for a while because unfortunately 5 months ago I was hiking in the North Georgia mountains. I slipped on a rock and fell down a ravine and broke my leg in 3 places. So
Okay.
that kind of put me on the couch for 3 or 4 months, and I'm just back to driving. A week ago, I'm starting to drive again. I went to physical therapy, which has all really been helpful. But I normally really do enjoy just really walking a lot in my neighborhood, listening to podcasts or just listening to music. I just find nature very soothing. I am in a book club that my niece started online during the
Oh,
pandemic, and we've stayed with that. And that's been fun because we have my niece who's started it. She's 31, so a couple of the young ladies are in their 30s. And then it's me and a sister in law.
also in your 30s.
Yes, of course. So then there's like two other people my age, and it's been really interesting. The books I've been exposed to that maybe I wouldn't have known about, but
Mhm.
it's interesting to have women of different ages and generations, how they interpret books. So that's been fun. We do that online. Um, I I'll probably start again now that I'm starting to recover, but I'm also taking singing lessons once a week.
Really?
Just for fun. I don't want to perform or anything like that, but I grew up, my mom was very musical and played the piano. And I think when you retire, like I said, you slow down and you retire, you kind of go back to some of the things that maybe were your passions, even
Yeah.
when you were like a child or a teenager, that you've kind of forgotten about because you got so busy.
Yeah.
But you sort of feel this calling. Like I felt like, I don't know why I'm feeling kind of like I'm missing music. And I just do it for enjoyment. And that's been really fun.
Oh, wow. So you mean you want to just take singing lessons, like you don't want to sing. So what do you want to do? You just want to be better vocally?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
enjoy. I mean, I go to a place that they do teach professionals. They have all
Ah,
kinds of students. They have professional singers and some really great singers. Some who are like famous, but then they have regular people like me that are
like you.
just doing it for fun.
Uh-huh.
And I think you want to challenge yourself in some things, get out of your comfort zone. I think
Yeah.
that's where taking the singing lessons is a little bit out of my comfort zone because I haven't
Uh-huh.
done something like that since, I haven't sung since college. So that kind of thing, I think that's a good thing. I think that's what I would say after retirement. Some things you maybe already enjoyed and you have more time to do, but I think it's good to challenge yourself and do something that you just normally wouldn't do.
So I guess it would be weird if I asked you to sing something because you would not
Yeah, I
do
would
it.
be not. I'm too shy about that.
Okay.
I wasn't
Okay.
shy about being a reporter and anchor, but
You're sorry about this. Okay, got it. Let's talk about, one of the things I've also noticed, and we talked about this at our lunch too, is how drastically the news business, when you started, then when I started, and what it is now has changed. And it's amazing being now on the outside of it, watching it. It just looks like a completely different place.
Well, the news, I mean, now it is literally 24/7. I
Yeah.
mean, on our phones. I mean, it
Yes.
is you can get information at the, drop of a hat. It's on your phone. You can wake up in the morning. Oh, what are the headlines? What are that? Back when I started, I mean, you had to watch TV or listen to the radio, or you read the morning paper, the
Hmm.
printed paper, to get what was going on. And CNN was a 24-hour news, but other than that, there weren't a lot of 24-hour, sources of news.
Yeah.
And now there's just so many different places that news is coming from. And when you work as a journalist, it is more of a 24/7 job. Not that you're working all the time, but you really are trying to stay up on everything.
Right.
There's always, new information. So it's not, oh, it's the end of the day. I
I'm
don't really
done.
pay
Yeah.
attention until tomorrow morning and see what's going on. It's more continual for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I also think it's interesting too, because like you said, people can have it on their phones. And then we have so many spaces now where it's not really news. It's a blogger, it's somebody who, may have a large platform for another reason, and they just like to kind of weave, their thoughts or news into it, which makes the journalism and journalistic plane very muddy now. It's a very muddy space.
Yeah, that's really a good point. I mean, that does concern me, because when you're looking online, or you're looking on your computer and you're reading stuff, it can all blend in.
Yeah.
So to somebody, you can have a news site, and as we learned in working in news, we're very who, what, where, when, why, looking,
Yes.
let's get the facts before we put it out there, and
Hmm.
let's make sure we know this. And I mean, you can just even look at that tragic plane crash that happened last night. When you look online, I mean, within an hour, I was seeing people speculating. Well, you can speculate all you want, but that's not
Hmm.
really accomplishing anything
Hmm.
that early in the investigation.
Hmm.
And ask the questions, you can find out, whatever you can. But I think for people, viewers, whatnot, readers, it can blend in, and it sometimes can be hard to know, well, that's just someone's opinion, which everybody
Hmm.
has a right to put their opinion out there, but that may not be fact.
Hmm. And I think that's the other thing too. I think the lines have blurred. What's fact, what's opinion, what's pontificate, just all of the things. And it's really interesting watching well-known news agencies in some spaces go off of opinion and not necessarily the fact, or there's no real fact checking. So I think it's funny. It's funny and it's interesting that both of us kind of left the news business as this whole stage has changed. Would you ever want to be a part of the news cycle the way that it is now? Would you find it hard to do that?
I think I could still do it I do believe local TV, WSB, they are still factual. They're more focused on, here's what happened today. Here's the
Yes.
breaking news. Here's the investigative. So to me, and here's the weather and the sports.
Hmm.
So to me,
And the traffic.
yeah, and the traffic. It is Atlanta.
Yes.
That's important. So definitely, I do feel at the local level, there is still that, but there's so many other news sites that maybe just I personally think are a little much too opinion in
Right.
whichever direction it goes. And I think in the long run, that kind of turns people off. I mean, I've talked to
Hmm.
people who, you know, especially after an election, they're just so tired of everything. And they're like, oh, I can't watch right now. And it almost like turns people off, it seems.
Hmm. It's so funny to me too. Sometimes I think about it, it makes me laugh when we used to be it used to be so important to us to be on the scene first, to be the ones to show you the whatever video footage first, and to really be engaged. And now that I've stepped outside of news and been out for a long enough time, it's amazing how people we don't care. People don't care who got there first. People don't care who had the first videos. They just want the information. They want the
Yeah.
facts, and so that's really interesting for people who are watching this, young women who are interested in coming into news now. What advice do you give them? What do you say to them? I said
Well,
run, but
yeah. Well, the biggest thing I tell like young people that want to get in this business is one, you really want to work on your writing skills. I mean, writing is so essential. It's such a critical part of what we do. And when we tell a story, a lot of times that story is a minute 15 total, a minute
Mhm,
20. I mean, you have to get a lot of information in a very small space. And that includes the sound of the people you interview too. So you really have to
mhm,
learn to be very concise. So I think the writing is really important. I think you you want to be curious. I mean, you want to kind of be interested in, like, I'm just a person that, even I'm retired now and I still ask people a lot of questions. It's just my nature. Like I'll ask the lady at the checkout in the grocery store. It's just, I'm curious. So I think
mhm,
you do want to be a curious person. I think the biggest thing to really figure out if it works for you is to do an internship at a station. And really, that's true for any job, because you can have an image in your mind and you can study it in school of what the job is like. But I think when you do an internship and you are really seeing it day to day, and you go out with
absolutely.
the reporter and the photographer and you're on the scene and you really see what goes on behind the scenes and what it involves, I would find that by the end of the semester, I could tell some of the students were like, this is absolutely what I want to do. And some, you could tell this is not what they want to do. They might not want
Hmm.
to. When you start in this business, you have to move to, most times, you're going to move to a very small
Yes.
city. You're going to
Hmm.
start, in a small place and kind of work your way up. And you have to be willing to do that and willing to, I'll move anywhere because I want to get my start. And, some just realize, that's not for me. So I
Hmm.
think internships are really, really valuable.
And I think at WSB, we did a really good job. I think out of all the places that I worked, we did a really good job of taking our interns and really putting them in the spaces, in the live truck, in the news truck with
Absolutely.
us, making them ask questions, making them go back and write a script. There, Jonathan Martin, who's on NBC now at Channel 11, he was one of our interns who I specifically took time and was like, okay, this, and he's been in Texas interviewing
Mm,
Beyonce's dad, and so it
wow.
makes you proud to
Yeah.
see,
To see where he's gone.
yeah,
Wow.
to see how he's really taken it somewhere. So I hope that young people who are listening to this and who really want to focus on being journalists, not be famous,
Yeah.
not going viral, not being
Mhm.
pretty, because that's really not what journalism is. Is there anything that you miss about TV, WSB?
I miss the people there, kind of the energy that you have in a newsroom. It's
Hmm.
kind of unique because it's not like everybody's in a little office and you're just, doing your thing. You're in one big room.
Hmm.
Every When things break or decisions are made, everybody's kind of in there and you just have free reign talking to the next person, and
Yeah.
that kind of energy. I think I'm probably, that's what I miss. Just that
Yeah.
day to day. One of the things I liked about the job is that you really never knew exactly what your day
Hmm.
was going to be like.
Hmm.
Some days, you've set up the story the day before, it's very predictable, but the next day it could change in an hour. Your
Completely.
day goes in a completely different direction. There's breaking news, and so I enjoyed that part of it.
Hmm. It was, to be honest, it was an exciting job. It's an exciting career if you like, constant movement, go, go, go.
Mhm.
I realized that working at WSB allowed me to realize if I packed up and went anywhere else, I could work anywhere else because they really give you the tools.
Oh
They
yeah,
show you examples of how things can fall apart and how you still have to make your time slot.
right.
You still have to be on that set and you still have to perform whether you are sick or whatever. People don't
That's a
care.
good
Just
point.
provide the news. Before we wrap this up too, I could not let us, leave without, talking a little bit about Jovita.
Oh
The
yeah.
fact that, that was a really challenging time for all of us to realize that, she's no longer here. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was just one of the most shocking things that ever happened at work. Um, we it was during the COVID time, so we weren't coming in physically every morning to do our morning meeting. Normally, there's a morning meeting, all the producers and the managers and the reporters and photographers get together and kind of talk about the stories for the day. So we were all on line like this.
Mm-hmm.
And but shortly before, the news director had said, everybody, even people that normally wouldn't be in the morning, can everybody get online? I need to tell you about something. And my heart, I just felt so emotional. My heart just stopped, to hear that it happened so quickly. Jovita just, was having some symptoms and had to be rushed to the hospital and was diagnosed with a brain cancer
Mm-hmm.
and had to have surgery right away. And then, she was home after that, um, going through all of that and never was back into the station. And, she was young,
Yeah.
53, I believe,
Yeah.
a mother, and just such a part of the community and
Mm-hmm.
beloved and looked as healthy as could be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, it's so shocking to have that happen, and the loss of it was very hard for everybody, for sure.
It still, it still is. And sometimes I forget. And sometimes, it comes back because I remember so, clearly, because Jovita and I, had a really close friendship. And,
Mm,
the thing too, that was really, really hard to come to terms with when you kind of looked at all of us in that newsroom and realizing that we've had, out of all the stations here, we had the most amount of people who had to deal with some form of cancer. Me, Jovita, Laura Geary, Karen Minton, Monica Pearson.
yeah,
It
a
just
lot of
was,
people.
Wendy Corona. It was just a
Yeah.
lot of examples of, people who have fought the fight, who made it. So, I just thought that she would too. And it just was really devastating to realize that that was not the case.
I think
Um,
that's a really good point that you make, because, we saw a lot of people, yourself,
mhm.
who you look amazing and you're doing great. And,
Thank you.
but, who have, recovered and are doing well. So you just kind of optimistically think, of course she's going to be back in a couple
Yeah.
months. And, the reality wasn't the case in this time. That was really kind of shocking. Yes.
Shocking. And and it's so sad too, because there was a producer long before Jovita was diagnosed. Her name was Shonda Taylor. Shonda
Mhm.
and Jovita, as well as Johnny Cochran and the former Senator John McCain, all of them had the same type of tumor cancer diagnosis, and all of them. When I look back now, I'm like, okay, I don't know why I was so surprised, but it's such an aggressive cancer. It's one of those things you just cannot get a hold of. Um, but she will forever be remembered in our hearts, and it just teaches you how to live, just
Yeah.
live.
Unfortunately, both my parents passed away from cancer. My dad had pancreatic cancer, which is one of the
Mhm.
very aggressive cancers that's very hard to treat. And it was certainly, I should have mentioned this, but that was also a wake up call to me, because I was in my 40s when both of my parents passed from cancer, and, super busy then, working, raising kids, going 100 miles an hour, you don't slow down. But I said to myself, because my dad was about to retire and did not get to retire.
Mhm.
And I told myself, I want to leave in time that I can retire and enjoy that.
Mhm.
And I think I kind of put that out of my mind, but it was starting to come back to me like the year before I retired. I started thinking about that again. And I don't know if it was, almost like a message from him, but it was starting to weigh on me. And that helped. That was a big factor for me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to miss on that.
Absolutely. What would you say? And I promise we're going to wrap this up after this. What would you say about what television news, because I think this is important too, what it does to your love life. Like if you're married, if you're dating, how do you introduce people who don't have an understanding of what we do and how we do it and how often we do it and how we're constantly married to our phones and have to jump when it's time to jump? How do you navigate that? How did you navigate it?
Well, I think that is challenging. I was married for 25 years. I'm divorced now. And so we met in college. So we kind of, and he did work as a news photographer for 2 years and then went a different direction. So he had some understanding of the business, but it was challenging. I look back, it worked well in being able to raise the kids. I anchored the weekend mornings for 11 years. So I had 2 days off during the week, which helped to do some of the kids stuff. And then when I did the mornings, but then you don't have the weekends all together, and that's tough. And or somebody calls in sick, and you get called in the middle of the night or something like that. So it's definitely hard. And then, when you are dating, I'm in a relationship right now. I'm retired. But when I was working, I mean, after I divorced, and like I said, I'd been married 25 years and with my ex-husband 30 years and did some dating, but it is challenging because it's like during the week, you can't say, yeah, I'll meet you for dinner at 6:30 because you don't know what time you're going to get out from your live shot. And you don't know if there's going to be breaking news. And you might get called in, like you said, the snowstorm and be working 3 days, So I think that part, I think that can be very challenging for sure.
As well as just being on television and going out into the community and people automatically knowing who you are,
Right.
without really knowing who you are.
Right.
So I always found that very interesting as
No,
well.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
absolutely true. And it could make the other person feel a little bit uncomfortable, like,
Yes.
so I definitely, yeah.
Yes. And people can sometimes be very invasive when it comes to your space when you're out on a date or
Mhm.
when you're with your family or what have
Yeah,
you.
for sure.
What have you yet to do in your retirement, Carol, that you want to do? You've got a lot of things checked off. Is there anything that you
Um,
still got to do?
I, what I haven't done yet, and I was gonna start exploring that when my accident happened. So my goal for this year, I do want to get into some kind of volunteer thing. So I want to find, I do actually think I want to do something in the cancer related field. So
Ah,
I want to do something like that. I had done something in the past where I helped to organize with two other women in Atlanta. Boy, it's been a long time now, maybe 15 years. We organized the first pancreatic cancer walk here, and it's grown and it's doing really well annually. So I want to do something, volunteer like, and I guess more travel. I mean, I have been doing some travel, but there's probably more places I want to go.
yeah.
And yeah, and see what else I come up with. But right now I'm good with kind of the, like, I don't want to
Right.
that's the balance. Like you want to
Yes.
schedule some things, but then you don't want to overschedule yourself. So it's
Uh-huh.
kind of finding that balance.
Absolutely. I tell you, when I feel like I'm overwhelmed, I just stop.
Yeah, well,
I
that's good.
realize like that's my recalibration right there.
Right.
Stop, rest,
Good
and
point.
then come back to it. And then I
Yeah,
realize too, I am not the 20, 30 something year old
exactly.
woman I used to be. I have to sit down now. Whereas
Exactly.
before I could push through, can't do that anymore.
And it's also important to realize that's fine. Like,
Yes.
because we were people that went 100 miles an hour much of our life. And
Yeah.
you don't have to do that all the time. Like you
Mm-mm.
can listen to your body or listen to your brain or whatever you're listening to that's telling you, slow it down for a little bit.
Stop.
And yeah,
Mm-hmm. Stop.
yeah.
Carol Sparks, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation.
This has been my pleasure.
And I miss you so much, but now it's just wonderful now that we can get together and have lunch or
We're
have
going to have lunch
whatever anytime
again. Yeah.
anytime we want. And
Yes.
that's been a beautiful thing. And I will say too, I have never been so unplugged into the news cycle. I love that I have the opportunity to check in when I want and
Mm,
dip out when I want, and I stay out of it more than I do checked in. So it's been great. And
thank
thank you so much for watching our show, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.